Hi, welcome to the College Recruiter webcast. My name is Stephen Rothberg. I'm the founder of College Recruiter. We believe that every student and recent graduate deserves a great career. College Recruiter is a job search site used by mostly Fortune 1000 companies, federal government agencies, and other employers that hire at scale, meaning dozens or even hundreds of students and recent graduates for part-time, seasonal, internship, and entry-level jobs. Today, I'm joined by Kimberly Jones. Kim and I first met by email and then in person this fall. I was organizing what was our 16th college recruiting boot camp. They're one-day user conferences, mostly for our employer customers, along with some of their contractors like employment advertising agencies, recruitment process outsourcing organizations, etc. The topic this past fall was on artificial intelligence and how employers are using it to improve their recruiting and retention, and how they should be using it, which are two very different things, especially with some fast-moving technology. The whole topic of AI in and of itself raises a lot of questions around bias and diversity. And I was contacted by a person who was interested in attending the event. For more information, she and I traded a bunch of emails, and then I had the good fortune of meeting her at the event. And that person, as you might expect, is Kim Jones. The host of the event was Google. It was at the Mountain View headquarters at their main campus. Partway through the event, Kim basically raised her hand, asked a question, and I was like, excellent. Now I know exactly who she is, because before all I really had was like an email with her. And I had emailed with a bunch of the potential attendees. So it was nice that I was able to put a face with a name. The question was fantastic. And right then and there, I knew that I would love to have her either as a panelist or a presenter at a future event or at a webcast like we're doing today. So Kim graduated from Wilberforce University. She had a Bachelor of Science degree in organizational management. I just found out in a little conversation before the event that although I'm one of 4 children, her family easily exceeded ours. I thought I grew up in a busy household. She trumps that without any question at all. She splits time between Columbus, Ohio, and also California. I think she has an office in LA. Sounds like she also has a number of employer clients in the San Francisco Bay Area, where she's fortunate enough to be right now. She's a global talent acquisition specialist. And when you look at the organizations that she's worked with, it's kind of the who's who of STEM heavy employers. Northrop Grumman Aerospace Systems, GE Aviation, Raytheon's Polar Services, where she worked for them for 6 weeks at the Antarctica, amongst other work that she did for them. She's worked for Honda. She's worked for Nationwide. Nationwide, she did a lot of work with some of their diversity hiring initiatives, including their internship programs. And then most recently, she was at NASA with their Jet Propulsion Laboratory, which, because it's a government organization, I think pretty much by law must be abbreviated to an acronym on JPL. Currently, Kim is the founder of Kelton Legend. It's a multidimensional talent acquisition strategy organizations. So what it does is it provides consulting services to both organizations. Probably some of our employer clients are also clients of yours in a bit of a different capacity. And she also works with some individuals. So Kim, anything I missed that you want to add?
I am the youngest of 11, and so I have 9 sisters and 1 brother. And so when I have opportunities to talk about diversity, I definitely use my family as the blueprint for that, because you can imagine the number of opinions and perspectives and food choices and clothes and all kinds of things. And so diversity for me has been both personal and professional. So I definitely take my experiences and bring it to what I do professionally.
Well, in a family of 11, I'm sure every moment was harmonious. Any disruption, any scrapping. So So I don't see how talent acquisition fits into that at all, because it's always harmonious in talent acquisition. And so speaking of harmony,
Yeah.
if people who are viewing, if you want to tweet questions to @Steven Rothberg, StevenRothberg, or post them alongside the YouTube broadcast, then what I'll try to do is get to as many of those as I can. The first question that I have for you, talk about harmony.
Yes.
Getting buy-in from your C-suite, your chief executive officer, your chief financial officer, chief marketing officer, chief information officer, and other leadership. When you're talking about diversifying your hiring team, how do you convince that C-suite that that's something that they should be doing?
Yeah, so I think it actually goes both ways. I think in some instances, your C-suite really is relying on your HR organization to provide recommendations to them about how we make this the best possible organization. And so where I think diversity was viewed as a trend, 2 decades ago, it's a business essential. And so I would expect that there would be a meeting of the minds, that there shouldn't still be a, diehard request to come to me with facts and benchmarking and data from your HR organization up to your C-suite to be convinced. I'd actually like to see it be the other way around, that as the C-suite is shaping strategy 1 year, 5 years out, that diversity not be an accessory, but be an essential element of the strategy. And the C-suite really be sharing with the organization, maybe to the HR team as, kind of planners and executors, here's what we expect. Please make this an essential part of what we do. What resources do you need, and what metrics should we measure? But if you find yourself in an organization where your C-suite in 2019 is still not convinced that diversity makes you more competitive, go out and do the research. McKinsey is an awesome research organization that has tons of very credible statistics based on real data. And so when you're looking at similar organizations, similar size, similar industry, that argument around, or the business case around what keeps you competitive, one of the statistics I just read recently from McKinsey, organizations who are diverse by gender and ethnicity outperform financially their peers by 35%. So there's not a C-suite anywhere that's not looking to perform better, either public or privately owned. You want to be doing as well as possible. And so the business case is the dollar amount, but I think the other part of the business case is you should be working for an organization who just values diversity in general. It shouldn't be tied to compliance. We should just be working for people who want to provide opportunities for everybody to help their organization be successful.
Yeah, the compliance, I've heard a lot of talent acquisition people, basically like the kind of work that you did for a lot of these organizations who are still in that role. I've heard over and over again that just like all the studies show that the more diverse an organization, the more productive is their workforce.
Oh, absolutely.
Whether you agree it's a good thing or a bad thing, or you care or you don't care.
Right.
If you're in business, you want, or a nonprofit or government, you want your workforce to be productive. And if diversifying your workforce is one way of making that workforce more productive, how could you not want to do that?
Right. I'll give you another example. A lot of times, like I said, diversity and compliance get commingled, and it gets really sensitive, and people get on the defensive. And so I try to take it a different approach. So companies who produce a consumer product, and I will ask them, how many left-handed engineers do you have on your design team? And so when you think about 30%, of the world is left-handed, if you didn't have left-handed designers as part of your product design team, have you delivered a product out to market that is not as functional as you'd like it to be? So if, talking about women, minorities, veterans, LGBTQ, people who are right there, people who are differently abled, if that creates a lot of angst for you, let's take the compliance piece out of it. People who are left-handed, they are a value to your organization because you want a product that everybody can use. I have a family member who has 5 boys, 3 of which are left-handed. The ironing board is always going the wrong direction. And so talking about people being left-handed is typically how I help organizations who have some obstinance to this message think about diversity a different way. It's very disarming when you just talk about people who are left-handed or people who are colorblind. And so there are different ways to have this discussion, but you want to make sure it's always tied to what your organization's business strategy is.
I love that. I haven't heard that. I'm gonna rip that off from you without any shame whatsoever. I held up a pair of scissors. I'm a lefty, and for those who are listening to this, the chances are they're right-handed. I had actually heard that 1 in 10 are left-handed, but you know way more about this kind of stuff than I do. I trust your numbers. My wife and I are both left-handed. We have 3 kids. Fortunately, they're all right-handed.
Wow.
I didn't want to. I mean, if I could have chosen, I would have chosen to have right-handed kids. So the world is simpler. As a right-handed person, stuff like scissors are built for right-handed people. So as a kid, I picked up scissors and used them with my left hand. They don't work properly. For a lefty, I mean, yes, your thumb is up on that side and your thumb's up on this side, but the blades are on the wrong side for a left-handed person. It doesn't work properly. So I don't know, at the age of 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever, I just had to learn how to be right-handed with some stuff. Now, it's kind of hard to say to somebody who is, you know, a woman or African American or, you know, whatever, hey, you just need to learn how to be white.
Exactly.
So the left-handed piece, I think, is a great example. It's something we're born with. And like when you talked about the consumer goods, I picked up on that. Certain consumer goods, like, you know, a glass of water, perfectly fine for both a left-handed person and a right-handed person. So, you know, a consumer goods company that makes a glass, you don't have to worry about lefty-righty. A consumer goods company that makes something as mundane as scissors, if they're not thinking about it from all perspectives, they're going to turn out a product that they can only sell to 70% of the population.
You're missing market share.
Absolutely. One of the things that intrigued me, Kim, you know, actually, before I go to the next question that came in, you know, you mentioned all these different studies. McKinsey, you mentioned a couple of times. If people are watching and they're having trouble finding those, can they shoot you an email? And then you can reply back with links or like a blog page or something where those would be there?
Either directly from my company website, which is keltonlegend.com. There's a contact us page where either candidates individually or organizations can submit. There's a hyperlink that takes you right to my email address, but my email address is KIMTHEJ@keltonlegend.com. There are lots of Kims in the universe right now, and so I distinguish myself by my email, KimTheJ@keltonlegend.com.
And Kelton is KELTON.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so when you and I were communicating about this event and talking about different topics, it was your idea to talk about, let's not just talk about diversity. My words, not yours. A lot of people talk about diversity, the importance of hiring a diverse workforce, but let's also talk about the importance of having a diverse talent acquisition force that's going to hire that workforce.
Absolutely.
So talk with me about that. It makes sense to me, sort of from an intellectual standpoint, why, if you're trying to recruit diverse candidates, if you don't have anybody involved in the recruiting, why that's going to be harder. You know, if you want to recruit engineers, and the only people who are interviewing on campus are recruiters that don't have an engineering background, the reality is most of those engineers are not going to want to talk to HR people. Is it the same when it comes to diverse candidates? I mean, if you're trying to increase the number of women, you need to have more female recruiters. Is it kind of a communication issue? What's the issue?
I think part of it is, and we had talked about this before, biases. Everybody has a perspective. And so certainly when you sit down and talk to someone who is like you feel like you're probably over that first part of the hurdle of this person can relate to me. But when you look at what your talent acquisition team is charged with, I've worked, small talent acquisition teams, large talent acquisition teams, the deeper and the more diverse, the better, for a couple of reasons. One, they typically then bring with them their individual experiences and their knowledge of the organization. And then when they're out on campus or engaging people virtually, you have this blend of what everybody knows to be able to relate to candidates. And so one of the things that's interesting, so you mentioned, women talking to women. And so I've worked for, technical organizations where we recruited at Society of Women Engineers, National Society of Black Engineers, Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. And so you don't want your Csuite team to be all women. You don't want your NSBE team to be all Black, because it creates a false narrative for candidates. So you have an all women team show up at Csuite and they're only interacting with women. But then you hire that person, they get to the organization, they find out your organization is really only 30% women. You've not created for them what the reality of that organization is. The other piece is about your team being diverse. A person shouldn't have to identify with that diversity team's characteristic to be in a position to want to support and advocate for. So there should be men on your Csuite team. There should be white employees on your ship team. I'll give you a perfect example. When I was at NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory, we created diversity ambassador teams that were an extension of our TA organization. And so we had about 10 to 14 people, and we had a lead and a co-lead. The two co-leads, a co-lead that was a TA team member, and then a co-lead from the actual business units. And we hadn't at first had someone step up from the organizations who wanted to be the co-lead for NSBE. And so after the meeting, I received an email from an employee who was an Asian female, and she said, "Hey, I'm really interested in being the co-lead for NSBE, but I didn't want to offend anybody, and I didn't know if it was okay because I'm not Black." And I said, "Let's sign you up right now. If you're prepared to advocate for talent, we understand that the groups are focused on a particular demographic, but if you're prepared to advocate for talent, I am not going to allow you an opportunity to help this organization be successful." So the diversity in the diversity teams is important as well. The other piece around that is when you think about levels of the organization, you want senior members, you want entry or early career members as well. One of the other things I really try to advocate for are people who are both introverts and extroverts. And so we tend to want to pick people for our recruiting teams who are extroverts, because we want them to be able to be not in the booth, but in front of the booth, out doing some guerrilla marketing, grabbing people in the aisleways, bring them to your booth. But having a few introverts is important because they bring a perspective about what may be sometimes points of anxiety when you're engaging. And if they see that other introvert in line, they can connect with that person and help them understand, what do you do in those moments of an interview to say, yes, I'm an introvert, but I'm talented, I have a skill, I want to help this organization be successful. So blending out your teams with a little bit of everything really works to an organization being successful and tapping into the talent that's best for your company.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I could just absolutely picture it. So, I've like many people, I've had the Myers-Briggs test, and how scientifically valid it is, I don't know. I would say it's quite interesting. For what that's worth. But one of the things that they evaluate you on is the introvert extrovert.
Yes.
And I can tell you, I think I've taken the test, well, at least twice, maybe 3 times, and depending on the test, of the day, the time, the environment, I either come out a little bit on the introverted side or a little bit on the extroverted side. So I think I'm able to sort of understand it from both perspectives. And the best definition that I've heard of like how to figure out if you're an introvert or an extrovert is if you go to a party with a whole lot of people At the end of the evening, are you kind of exhausted and you can't wait to go home to go to bed?
Yeah.
If
Yes.
so, you're probably an introvert.
Yes.
And on the other hand, if you're just totally jazzed, then you are probably an extrovert. When you're at a career fair and you walk into a room and there are 2,000 kids there and 100 employers, for an introvert, that is scary.
It can be, for sure.
And it really puts them at a disadvantage. Video resumes, I think, are horrible for introverts, especially if you're in sales, and you and I are talking on video. I think we're, relatively comfortable doing that. Fine. But if you're a mechanical engineer who's really introverted, maybe even a little bit, say, on the autistic spectrum.
Still, right.
That can be a phenomenal employee for someone, and yet they're going to be horrible in a video interview because they're just not going to feel comfortable. I don't know about you, but the last time I checked, a really good engineer is not doing, their work is not involved basically reading a resume into a camera. It's like those skill sets just aren't consistent with their actual work. Something that you and I had talked about earlier before we jumped on camera that I really wanted to make sure that we hit. You had mentioned to me that you can't teach somebody to be unbiased. And when you said that, I was really surprised because my thinking, you have way more training and expertise in this. So I think what I said to you before we jumped on is I'm looking forward to you telling me how wrong I am and why. So teach somebody to be biased. Right? Like little kids, they don't look at somebody. It's like, you're black, I'm going to treat you one way. You're white, I'm going to treat you another way. We teach that kind of bias to kids, unfortunately. So if you can teach it, why can't you unteach
it? Yeah. That's interesting. So I talked about my family. My mother fixed our plate. You ate what was on your plate. So there are very few.
If it was liver?
Now, liver and oysters and avocados are probably the things that I will actually say I don't like.
Okay.
But to your point,
liver, you're right. Oysters and avocados, you are just wrong. And that's the end of that discussion.
I will take that. But to your point about what we teach people to do, can you unteach or teach people to do something different? Life is you're learning all through your life. And so now you take what you've learned, through your life experiences, from your parents, from your siblings, from your neighborhood, from your church. And now you're an employee of this company with all of these biases, good or bad.
Yep.
And you're in an organization who wants to be successful, and you don't want to miss an opportunity to say, yes, this person should come join us because of a bias. There's a great book, and I posted on my LinkedIn page. It's called Blind Spot. It's the hidden biases of good people. And so where diversity, inclusion, unconscious bias, conscious bias are all in the forefront right now, and companies will have spent thousands of dollars with, scientists, HR people coming in, and you'll have your 2-hour or 4-hour session. You have your binder, you have your test, you have your table activities with your team. You finish, you get your certificate, your gold star, and your learning management system, you get your check mark, and people will go right back to their desk and be the same person, good or bad. And so it's about creating the expectation that we're not training you, we're making you more aware. And now that you are more aware of what this organization's position is and expectation is, are you prepared to help advocate on behalf of this organization to make sure everybody has an opportunity to achieve, compete, be successful? Or if what you learned really doesn't mesh or gel with what's in your heart and what's in your spirit, is this an opportunity maybe for you to transition and find a different organization that operates a different way? And so it's not necessarily the teaching, but it's raising the awareness. And then people have to really be given an opportunity to say, is this a go or no go for you? Especially in light of a lot of the organizations who find themselves in the press, not in a good way, because biases tend to manifest and then, create these amplified situations where your company's not seen in a good light.
So So what I'm hearing is, again, my words, not yours.
Mhm.
But in an ideal world, you probably could unteach that bias, that old-fashioned attitude of engineers have to be male,
Mhm.
um, or umpteen other examples like
Right.
that. But it's just not feasible for an employer to take one of many employees, one of many biases that we all walk around with every day, and unteach that. But what
Right.
you can feasibly do is teach empathy, or,
Yes.
or, or improve empathy. So we recognize in ourselves, okay, I'm biased about that. That's not rational. That's not how I want to think. That's not how I want to behave. So I'm going to resist that.
Right, right.
Uh,
And in a certain extent, I hear people talk about, oh, that person is different. And it assumes that there's a norm and anyone outside that norm is different. But we're all different. Everybody's different for a different reason.
well, my family tells me I'm different all the time, but usually they say it with like vengeance in their voice.
And so that's the awareness and the unteaching is recognizing that we're all different. We all potentially have something to contribute. Everybody should have that opportunity to contribute and help your organization be successful.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we've got just a couple minutes before we leave off, and let me just see.
Any questions that came in that might be a good, hairy, controversial question that I can answer for anybody today?
Yeah. Well, maybe I think we have time for one more that we have here. And this is actually a really good one, given sort of what College Recruiter does with helping employers hire students and recent grads, and the work that you do so much of. So what expectations should teams have of the college university itself, the school, in helping the employer reach diverse student groups?
Oh, absolutely. So, university students are the commodity that organizations produce, and so they have a vested interest in creating the best possible candidate pool because that is the commodity. And so, when you have organizations who are part of helping develop curriculum, who are on campus volunteering, who are providing pizza and information sessions because students don't have money or they've exhausted their dining account. Partnering with a career services office, the dean's office is clearly an expectation because organizations need universities, universities need organizations. And so if an organization or when an organization approaches the university and says, hey, here's our diversity strategy for the year, you're one of 12 or one of 2 campuses that we're partnering with. We want to, be branded appropriately. We want maximum visibility, but not just here's what we want, here's what we can provide. And so it's that mutually beneficial relationship around how can we make the university better to produce better students, and how can we help these organizations be better because they're open to considering diverse talent. So at the end of the day, when we walk away from that relationship, everybody should be better by what we actually poured into that relationship.
Yeah, and some people and some organizations have more time than money.
Yes,
Some have
yes,
more money than time.
yes,
So one thing
yes.
I've learned from being on the boards of nonprofits is that you absolutely need those volunteers with time and not money. They're the
Yes.
people who actually, do the work.
Yes.
If it's Habitat for Humanity, they're the ones with the hammers.
Yes.
You also need those people who are able and willing to write checks.
Yes, absolutely. There's a blend of those. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Well, this was awesome. I know you and I could probably keep going at this for 2 hours and
Yes.
just be scratching the surface. The next time we do something, we'll find out from you like how exactly you get properly dressed to be in the Antarctica for 6 weeks.
Happy to share that with you.
Problem here in Minneapolis. So if any of the listeners want to get a hold of you, Kim, so your email address is Kim the J, KIMTHE, the letter J,
Yeah.
KeltonLegend.com, KeltonLegend.com, or even better, just go to your website. There's a prominent contact us link.
Yes.
They can contact you on LinkedIn. Any closing thoughts or ways that you'd like people to reach out to you?
Closing thoughts, I will say tomorrow's Valentine's Day. And so one of the things I've talked about is, the day before Valentine's Day, show love. And what I will say around this message of diversity, show your candidates love. Make sure your candidates know that your organization values diversity, how you've been successful because of it, and where they might have a place in your organization. So that's what I would encourage everyone. And again, I'm available, website, LinkedIn. If you don't remember all of that, if you contact Steve directly, he will redirect you to me. But my goal partnering with Steve is we want great opportunities for students. We want companies to be better. And so if we can achieve that, we've put a little good out in the world for everybody today.
What's the expression? When we all do better, we all do better.
Yes. Better is better.
Awesome. Well, Kim, thank you so much. It was such a
pleasure
to call, and again from a couple thousand miles away today.
Yes. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thanks, Kim.
Uh-huh.